As I get older, I'm finding myself wanting less and spending less. You could even say that I'm becoming positively frugal in my old age. And that's quite a surprise to those that have known me for any length of time, because in my 30s and 40s particularly, I would say that I was the absolute opposite of that. I was always wanting the latest gadget, the latest thing, and I had endless new cars, probably changing my car sometimes once a year, but certainly every couple of years. So I've even surprised myself as to my frugality. But I think it's really important to have a frugal mindset when you reach your later years, because at the end of the day there is always the concern that the amount of money that you've put aside to live on, your pension pot, whether it's invested wisely or not, might not last. So for me, I'm just keen to make sure that I'm not wasting my money on the things that I used to waste them on when I was much younger. These days there are a number of things that I no longer waste my money on. So in this video I'm going to share those things with you in the hope that it might help you. And I'd also be interested to hear how you might have changed over the years with regards to your spending. I don't spend money on exercise if I can help it. I like exercise to be free. Today is a perfect example of that. I'm walking on the Knavesmire, where the York Racecourse is sited. I'm on the track that goes around the inside of the racecourse, just having a walk. I've had to buy some nice walking shoes, admittedly, but they tend to last a couple of years. With regards to strength training, I also like to work out in the gym, but the gym that I work at is my home gym. I think gym memberships in particular, especially the ones that are 12-month contracts that roll, I think they're a complete waste of time. In our local city here we have a David Lloyd Leisure Club, and I'm not sure exactly how much it is these days, but I'm fairly sure it's 70 or 80 pounds a month just for a single membership to use the gym. Well, that adds up. I mean, that's £1,000 a year. Over 5 years, that's £5,000. And I don't know about you, but when I was a member of those kind of places, I hardly ever went. I was lucky if I was there twice a month, so that was just wasteful. The next thing that I don't spend money on, which I think is a complete waste of money, is food and drink from the chain shops like Starbucks or Costa or Caffè Nero in this country, and the sandwich shops like Pret a Manger. If I can stay clear of those kind of places and their extortionate prices, I will. If I'm actually going to spend any money at all, I'd rather spend it at an artisan coffee shop knowing that I'm getting a decent cup of coffee, or maybe a sandwich from a decent shop where you know it's good quality sourdough bread, not ultra processed food. And then the other thing that I like to do with regards to coffee is that if I'm going walking, or if I'm going out on a long day out, or I'm driving somewhere for a long time, I like to take a flask of coffee with me, or I like to make a pack up. Anything to avoid having to visit a Starbucks. And on the subject of food and drink, the other thing that I won't spend money on is water. I've had a tap installed in my house that delivers filtered water, and I'd rather fill up my water bottle than to buy bottled water, and in particular buy a bottled water from places like Starbucks or Pret a Manger, where they're charging £2 for a bottle of still water. So that's another one of my kind of hacks that I think is a complete waste of money, is not to spend money on bottled water. The next thing that I think is a complete waste of money is buying books, newspapers and magazines. I subscribe at the moment to Apple News because they've got a 3-month freebie subscription, and I've taken advantage of that. And all the magazines I would ever read would be on there. The Sunday Times and the Times newspaper is on there, plus one or two others, I think the Daily Telegraph. So I take advantage of that. Now when that comes to the end of its freebie, I'll probably cancel it, and I'll sign up for my normal news reading app, which is an app called Readly. When I was recording this video, I checked the price of it, and it's about £12.99 a month, and for that you get lots of newspapers and loads of magazines. So why would anybody want to buy them? When it comes to books, I like to borrow my books for free. I've actually signed up to the local library, and I can download digital books from the local library using an app called BorrowBox. I've actually got one of my viewers who left a comment some months ago about this to thank for that. The other place where I get books is I've got a Prime membership, and they send a book at the beginning of every month for free that you can read. And I always take advantage of that, and so does my wife. We always read our free books that they offer every month. And then there are others that come with the Prime membership that are available for free. So again, there's absolutely no reason to buy books. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to read more than one book a month. So that does me. The only exception to the rule is that I will buy a cookbook occasionally as a gift for my wife, who loves cooking and she likes to leaf through a physical book. The most recent book that I bought was one by the young lady who is very popular on Instagram. She's got an Instagram feed called M the Nutritionist, a young lady called Emily English, and her recipes are absolutely fantastic, incredibly nutritious, very, very good for you. I found her because when I had my gallbladder problem, which I still got by the way, I'm about 3 weeks away from having my gallbladder out, but I was looking for recipes that were low fat and highly nutritious, and Emma's recipes fall into that category. I keep getting passed by all sorts of vehicles as I'm recording this video. They come up behind me, I kind of hear them, and then I look in the rear view mirror, which is my camera screen, to see them. So there's a lot of work going on at the moment here on the Knavesmire in January, keeping the racecourse spick and span ready for the very first meeting, which is in May. Next on my list is tourist souvenirs. When I was younger, I always used to come back with a souvenir from my holiday. I can remember being a young boy and coming back with a Spanish sword. I mean, they wouldn't allow that these days, would they? But now when I go on holiday, I don't come back with any souvenirs at all. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's just tat and clutter. I'd rather have my memories, video, photographs and things like that. No need to bring something back. I visit my Uncle Archie often and have a chat with him and a cup of coffee. He's 94 and his wall's absolutely covered with plates that he's brought back from all his travels with Ibiza and Turkey on them, and he's also got tons of that glass that you can buy from Murano in Venice, the glass ornaments. No, not for me. I mean, I'm trying to develop minimalist and essentialist strategies and tendencies as I get older, so the last thing I need is stuff. The next waste of money after 60, and something that I very rarely spend any money on, is gambling. Years ago, I used to go to the races with my dad. He was a bit of a gambler. He loved a flutter. He was an Irishman who came over to the UK when he was only 17, and like a lot of people in Ireland, they're into their horses, and he certainly was. So we used to come here onto the racetrack, and we used to have a little bit of a flutter. But I haven't had a bet or anything like that now for easily 10 years. Also, never play the lottery, never do any form of sports betting or anything like that. I'd rather save my money and put it towards things that feed my soul, rather than just get some kind of thrill from. The next thing that I don't waste my money on anymore is restaurant meals at peak times and at weekends, because these days I like to take advantage of the set menus and the early bird menus and any deals that are on offer. Tonight, for example, I'm going out for a meal because it's my mother-in-law's birthday, and we've booked in at 6 o'clock into the Ivy restaurant so that we can take advantage of the early bird menu at 6 o'clock. And not just that, in January their entire wine list is half price. Now that's my kind of deal. That's the sort of thing I like to do. I wouldn't dream of going to a restaurant on a Saturday evening at say 8 o'clock and paying full price for the meal a la carte and full price for the wine menu. It's just not something that I do anymore. The other thing that I think is a complete waste of money is travelling at peak time on a train in the UK. I always look for a deal, I always look for the sale prices when it comes to travelling by train. And I travel by train a lot because my wife and I, we go to London every single month to see our son. So we want to make sure that we're getting a really good price. And sometimes we pay as little as £10 each for a ticket to London. Whereas if you look at the retail price of it, the normal price, it's well over £100 per person. I would never pay that. They've just had a January sale and I bagged a few £10 tickets for March for travelling to London. That's the sort of thing I like to do, but I've never travelled at peak time. I always try and travel after 10 o'clock or something like that so that I can get a cheap ticket. And then the other thing I do, which is a bit of a hack that somebody mentioned to me, so I'll pass it on to you, is I use an app called SeatFrog to get cheap upgrades to first class. So it only cost me £10 to upgrade to a first class ticket. The next thing that's a waste of money is overpriced hotel accommodation, particularly in London. When we visit London, we always stay in the Premier Inn hub, and we never pay more than £100 for a night for staying in London, say on a Friday night. And that's enough. But you can easily in London get a hotel for £200 or £300, and they're not actually very good hotels at all. So I recommend the Premier Inn hub in London if ever you're staying in London. Look them up. There's one near King's Cross railway station, whereas if you plan it far enough ahead, you can get rooms there for as little as £70 a night, and it's perfectly adequate. It's comfortable, it's got a good bar. They even offer breakfast the next day for about £8. So that's another thing that I think is a waste of money. Overpriced, particularly 4-star hotel accommodation. The next thing that I think is a complete waste of money is full price clothing and accessories, especially the ones that are non-branded from places like Marks and Spencer's or Next. I would never dream of spending £60 or £70 on a sweater from somewhere like Marks and Spencer's. I buy all my clothes in the sale at 70% off. The most I'll pay is 50% off. And I'm always looking for reasonable brands that when I get fed up with them, and I do, after a few years, I can sell them on eBay and get some of the money back. So I've got some favourite brands for like this one that I'm wearing today, which is Barber. That's one of my favourite brands. My jeans are by Hugo Boss. That's another favourite brand of mine. I also like Belstaff, Stone Island. Their products are very easy to sell on somewhere like eBay. So that's what I do. And one of my favourite places to shop for these kind of brands is TK Maxx. My wife and I visit TK Maxx quite often and have a bit of a rummage through their clothing rails to see if we can pick up some bargains. And I always do. As I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to develop minimalist and essentialist attitude towards things these days. So I've only got a relatively small capsule wardrobe, but I always make sure that it's stocked with good quality brands that I can sell on at a later date if I want to, and also brands that are pretty hard wearing. So that's my my tip, is shop for good quality brands at places like TK Maxx, because you never know when you might want to sell them on. Next on my list is peak season holidays. I never travel peak season, and the reason I don't travel peak season is, again, I'm looking for a deal on my holidays. I don't want to pay the ridiculous prices for flights and hotels that you get in the summertime, where it's linked and it's the same time as the kids' holidays. I like to avoid that at the plague. I'm always looking for a deal. And these days I spend most of my time in Portugal in my timeshare. And the reason I bought a timeshare is that it was cheap to buy in the first place. It was only €3,000 and it guaranteed me 2 weeks every year at Christmas. And it's only €900 maintenance each week. Now that's a pretty inexpensive holiday. If you then couple that with the fact that the flights at that time of year are not overly expensive either. You can get a flight for less than £100 return to Portugal. That means when I go to Portugal and I have my 2 or 3 weeks, and I often bolt on a few more weeks either side of our timeshare, rented from the same people who run the timeshare. That's a company called MNG Elliott. So I'll leave a link below for their website if you're interested in renting a property. They charge good prices, nothing ridiculous. We often bolt on a few extra weeks like that, and it turns out to be an inexpensive holiday. So I just can't see the point in spending, upwards of £10,000 on going on holidays in the summer when you can spend a fraction of that and get a fantastic experience. Next on my list of things not to waste your money on after 60 is my old passion of cars. As I mentioned earlier, I used to spend a lot of money on cars. These days, not at all. I don't have a car at the moment, as it so happens. I use my wife's little Mini 2008 Mini convertible, which I think cost all of £3,000. That's the car I use at the moment. Although full disclosure, that will be changing in the future because I am on the lookout for a new car. Just running around in an old banger Mini isn't really very practical, so I've always had a car, and at some point soon I will be getting another one so that I can go on some long journeys. I've got quite a few field trips planned for doing these sorts of videos. Much as I love my wife's little Mini, it's not the most reliable beast in the world, so I will be getting something that's going to be a bit more useful and a bit more practical for me. But I don't see the point in buying big luxury SUVs. For me, I do like a little bit of comfort. I like to get from A to B without my back aching. So I have got something planned. I like electric cars. I've had electric cars now for the last 5 years, and at some point, I think in the next month or two, I'll probably get a Tesla Model 3. I've heard good things about them. I think they're a bit like Marmite from what I can gather. People either love them or hate them, and I know that Elon Musk in particular is coming for a lot of flack off people that won't buy the car because, you know, Elon Musk. I really couldn't care less about that. If you watch any of my early videos, you'll know I don't care about stuff like that. As far as I'm concerned, if it's good value, if it's comfortable and it can get me from A to B and it's cheap to run, it'll do me. The final thing on my list is big houses. If you've watched any of my earlier videos, you'll know that I downsized with my wife into a smaller house coming up to 3.5 years ago now, and it was the best thing that we did. It's in the city, it's convenient for the railway station, convenient for you know, the doctor, convenient for restaurants and cafes, and it's more than half the price to run for electricity and gas and rates and all those kind of things. My previous house was your typical 4-5 bedroom family house. Our son was living at home at the time, so we obviously thought we needed a bigger house with a garden to play in and all that kind of thing, and we did. I've no regrets. It was the right house for that time. But he's 26 now, he's grown up, he left home years ago, so the last thing my wife and I need to be is rattling around in a great big house. So we've actually got something much more manageable in the city centre of York, and I love it. It's the best thing that I've done, and I would certainly recommend downsizing to anybody. So yeah, big houses cost a lot of money. No point having them if there's only just two of you. Best to get something more manageable, something you can just lock up and leave. So those are the things that I don't spend money on anymore after 60. I'm developing an essentialist and minimalist attitude to money. I'm firmly of the belief that you don't need as much money as you age anyway. I'm fairly certain I won't be spending anywhere near the same amount of money in my 70s and 80s as I spent in my 40s and 50s. My peak years were when I was about 55 or 56. At that point I had a teenage son still at school. He was about to go to university. I lived in a big house. I had a few cars. My monthly expenses were huge. Now I'm spending significantly less than I was spending then. I would go so far as to say probably about a third or even a quarter. I'm hoping that'll continue to be the case as I get older. God forbid if I end up needing any form of nursing home or care, because that's the only thing that can change the amount of money that you spend in your old age. But I'm hopeful, like my Uncle Archie, that I managed to avoid that fate. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. You might want to watch this video next, which is the 5 things I don't do anymore after 60. Thanks for watching. See you next time.